Undercover boss grabs breakfast, freezes as waitress admits she's skipping meals to survive. The first rays of morning sunlight pierce through the gray clouds over the city. John, 40 years old, CEO of the Sunrise restaurant chain, stood quietly by the office window. The cup of coffee in his hand had long gone cold, but his thoughts were still burning and chaotic. 15 years ago, John began this journey with nothing but a small restaurant and a dream to bring people meals as warm and comforting as the morning sun. But now, though the restaurant chain had spread across major cities, that light seemed to be fading. Last month's revenue had plummeted. The service quality reports were full of polished numbers, yet alongside them were waves of negative customer reviews. The staff seemed cold, the food isn't what it used to be, and the most painful words of all, Sunrise is now just a shadow of its former self. John knew no number could tell the real story unless he saw it with his own eyes. The tailored suit was replaced with a worn-out jacket, his shiny leather shoes tucked away in the closet. In their place, he put on the plain image of an ordinary middle-aged man. John became a stranger in his own empire. That morning, no private driver, no packed schedule, he quietly walked into one of Sunrise's earliest branches, the one that once stood as the proudest achievement of his career. No one recognized the man with the cap pulled low as the founder of a culinary empire. And perhaps even he didn't expect that by sitting down as an ordinary customer, he would uncover truths beyond his imagination. The smell of freshly roasted coffee drifted through rows of empty tables. John sat quietly in a shaded corner near the window, where the faint morning light gently touched the steaming cup of black coffee before him. The menu in his hands, though familiar enough to recite by heart, suddenly felt foreign now that he was experiencing it through the eyes of an anonymous guest. Light footsteps pulled him out of his thoughts. A gentle voice spoke up. "Good morning, sir. What would you like for breakfast today?" John looked up. In front of him stood a young woman, slender, her Sunrise uniform frayed at the collar. Her eyes were clear, yet behind that courteous smile lay a fragile sadness, like morning dew not yet melted on the doorstep. "I haven't decided yet. Do you have a recommendation?" John asked in his deep, warm voice. The girl smiled faintly, a smile that couldn't quite reach her eyes. "I think you should try the fresh pancakes. But if you're looking for something more filling, the sunny side-up eggs with toast are also fine." John noticed a fleeting hesitation in her eyes as she mentioned, "more filling." Something stirred within him, an urge to ask further, though he didn't quite know why himself. "Have you had breakfast yet?" The question slipped out so naturally that the young woman froze in place. Her eyes dimmed for a moment, and her hand tightened around the order book. "Usually I skip breakfast to save money for my mom and little brother. These past months I've been working extra morning shifts, but the tips aren't much. The food here is for customers. We have to pay if we want to eat too." She said it as if it were the most ordinary thing in the world, her eyes lowered to hide the silent bitterness. John felt a heaviness settle in his chest. Each word she spoke seemed like a drop of water falling into a still lake within him, creating ripples that stretched endlessly outward. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have told you these things." She quickly lowered her head and hurried away, afraid that his gaze might see through the hardship hidden behind her fragile smile. John sat there motionless, his hand gently squeezing the cup of coffee that had long gone cold. All those years, countless polished reports had been placed before him, filled with beautiful numbers and well-met targets. Yet no number had ever reflected the harsh reality that within the very empire he built, there were people starving just to survive, to keep smiling for customers even as their hearts were weighed down by sorrow. At that moment, he realized there were things that could never be measured by financial reports. And in that same instant, John knew the real journey of his life had only just begun. Under the pale morning sunlight, John, the founder and CEO of Sunrise Restaurant, quietly returned to the very first branch, where it had all started from nothing. But this time, he didn't come as the boss. Dressed simply in an old jacket, a cap pulled low, he looked no different from an ordinary customer. After that breakfast, the things he heard from Lynette, the young waitress with a gentle smile and eyes always clouded with sadness, left his heart heavy. She had quietly confessed that she often skipped meals to save money to care for her sick mother and two younger siblings still in school. She didn't complain, didn't cast blame. She simply shared it as an undeniable truth of life. John found he no longer had the appetite, even though the golden toast and warm coffee before him remained untouched. Those perfect-looking financial reports he reviewed every day suddenly felt meaningless. From that moment, he decided to come back and observe more closely. At every hour of the day, what he saw and heard shocked him deeply. 10 a.m. In the quiet storeroom, John saw deliveries of ingredients that didn't meet company standards, meat that wasn't fresh, wilted vegetables. But the shift manager, a man named Gary, signed off the deliveries without a second glance and even shook hands warmly with the supplier right there in the parking lot. By noon, when the restaurant filled with customers, John noticed how the staff had to bow their heads before the managers, enduring harsh words and criticism. The young girl from before Lina kept working diligently, her hands swiftly clearing tables and serving customers without a single word of complaint, though every now and then, her eyes glistened red as she turned away to hide her tears. As the afternoon settled in and the cashier counter grew quiet, John overheard whispers from the service staff. Sister Lina had to hand over half of today's tips again. Manager forced her to. If she doesn't, they'll just deduct it straight from her wages. Who dares to speak up? John clenched his fists, his chest tightening. That young woman, the one who still smiled so gently at every customer, who had just told him that very morning, "I don't need help, sir, I just need a place where I can work with dignity," was being exploited under the very roof he once proudly called Sunrise, where every day begins with new hope. In that moment, he realized he had completely forgotten why he started this journey. In the race to expand, he had chased profit reports and growth charts, forgetting that the true soul of Sunrise wasn't built from numbers, it was built by people. His mind wandered back to those early days, with a small pushcart under a rusty tin roof, where every loaf of bread was toasted with heart and care, where his first team treated each other like family, not just co-workers sharing tasks, but also sharing joy and hardship. John lifted his gaze to the gray twilight sky, his heart heavy. Had he become a great success in business, but failed miserably at keeping the promise he made to himself? And just at that moment, through the glass window, he saw Lina quietly stacking unpaid bills, her small hands trembling as she looked at the long list of hospital fees on her phone screen. Yet, when new customers walked in, she adjusted her hair, took a deep breath, and wore that bright, radiant smile as if no storm had ever raged in her heart. That was the moment John knew. It was time to stand up, not to adjust numbers in a report, but to fix the very heart of Sunrise Restaurant, a place where people would be valued again, where every sunrise would truly begin with hope. John stood up gently, walking slowly down the narrow hallway at the back of the restaurant. Each step on the worn tile floor echoed with memories long past. The hallway walls still held a faded black and white photograph taken on the day the first Sunrise branch opened. In the photo was a young man smiling brightly beside a tiny food cart, surrounded by his first team of coworkers. He reached out to touch the photo frame, the cool surface sending a chill through his fingertips, and his throat tightened with emotion. At the end of the hallway, through a door left slightly ajar, John heard a faint cough, mingled with Lina's soft, soothing voice. "Mom, please try to finish the medicine. I'll try to come home early today." John quietly stepped back, not wanting to intrude on such a private moment, but every word pierced through his heart like a needle. So, beyond her daily struggles at the restaurant, Lina was also silently fighting to hold together a family burdened by illness and hardship. That evening, under the warm yellow light glowing from the bar, John quietly sat in his corner of the room, a cold cup of coffee before him. Outside, the rain began to fall. Raindrops gathered on the window, sparkling under the streetlights like long suppressed tears. He saw Lina hurrying out back, sheltering her head with a thin scarf, carefully stuffing medical bills and a few crumpled notes into an old, worn-out fabric bag. She was shivering from the cold but still bowed politely to departing customers, her gentle smile unwavering despite the chill. That was the moment that shattered any remaining hesitation in John's heart. He knew that if he didn't act now, tomorrow and every day after, not just Lina, but many like her would continue suffering in silence. And Sunrise, the name he once proudly gave, meant to represent hope, and new beginnings would become nothing more than a hollow title. John stood up, his head held high. Outside, the rain poured relentlessly, but within him, a new dawn was rising. Tomorrow, he would return not in a humble old coat, but as the leader of Sunrise, to restore it to the light it was always meant to shine. The next morning, the atmosphere at the Sunrise branch was unlike any before. Rumors of a surprise inspection from the top spread like wildfire. Employees were visibly restless. Garethi's shift manager tried to keep calm, but his hands gripped a thick folder so tightly that his knuckles turned white. At exactly 9 a.m., the large glass doors swung open. John walked in this time in a sharp navy suit, no longer hidden beneath a worn jacket or a lowered cap. Pinned to his chest, a polished nameplate gleamed under the morning light. John Miller, CEO, founder, Sunrise Restaurant. The whispers fell silent instantly. The entire room seemed to freeze, thick with tension. John strode straight into the lobby, his eyes sweeping sharply over every face, then stopping on Lena still standing quietly by the cashier's counter, her eyes wide with confusion, her hands gripping a worn cleaning rag. His voice rang out, low but decisive, cutting through the air like a blade. "I believe it's time we had a very honest conversation, right now." In the packed meeting room, John stood before the large display screen. With a simple nod, his security team activated the internal surveillance footage. One clip after another played on the screen. Gary shaking hands with a supplier, accepting thick white envelopes right in the parking lot. Lena quietly wiping her tears in the storeroom, her hands trembling as she held her mother's medical bills. The recorded audio of staff being forced to surrender half their hard-earned tips. "If you don't hand it over, it'll come straight out of your paycheck. Who dares to object?" Gary's face went pale, beads of sweat rolling down his temples. John calmly stepped forward, his unwavering eyes locked on the manager he had once trusted. "Gary, I once placed my trust in you. Do you have anything to say now?" Gary stammered, I was just following cost-cutting procedures, sir." John clenched his fists, then slowly released them as he delivered his cold, decisive verdict. "You're fired, effective immediately. And let me be clear, this won't end here. The board of directors and the authorities will be fully informed." Turning to the employees, his voice echoed through the tense silence. "And for anyone else who stood by and allowed this to happen, stand up now. I'm willing to forgive those who have the courage to face their mistakes, but I will not tolerate cowardice." A few staff members hung their heads low and quietly walked out of the room. The tension broke as John slowly turned toward Lena. His voice softened, full of sincerity. "Lena, after everything you've endured here, why did you stay?" Lena's eyes welled up as she bowed her head slightly. "Because I still believe that one day, Sunrise will see a real sunrise again, sir." A profound silence swept through the room. John pressed his lips together, his own eyes brimming with tears. From his jacket pocket, he pulled out a sleek bank card and gently placed it in Lena's trembling hands. "There's $50,000 in that account. This isn't charity, it's an investment in the future. You'll receive a full scholarship in Sunrise's management training program. Starting today, you are officially the assistant branch manager." Lena broke down, her hands clutching the card as tears streamed freely down her cheeks. The room erupted into heartfelt applausino, longer a formal gesture, but a genuine outpouring of emotion. For the first time in years, John felt he had made a decision that was not only strategically sound, but profoundly right. He turned slowly toward the glass windows, where the first rays of sunlight were breaking through. His heart swelled with resolve. It's time for Sunrise to be more than just the start of a new day. It must become the place where people can start over again. The applause was still echoing when a hoarse, skeptical voice rose from the back of the room. "But sir, is this really enough? Can Lena alone change things? We've all been stuck in the old ways for so long. Who here truly believes Sunrise will be any different?" The air grew heavy with silence. The one who had spoken was Mark, the veteran sous chef, who had dedicated nearly a decade to this place, once the pride of this branch. His eyes reflected deep fatigue, worn down by years of dwindling faith, meager wages, and grueling shifts under harsh policies. John stepped closer, standing tall before Mark. But this time, his gaze wasn't stern, it was warm, deep, as if he were speaking to his younger self from years long past. "You're right, Mark. One person alone can't change an entire system, but one person brave enough to stand up, to light the way, can inspire others to follow." "Oh." He turned slowly, his eyes meeting every face in the room. "Today, I'm not just here to remove what's wrong. I'm here to restore what I myself had forgotten, the pride of being part of Sunrise. Starting today, everything changes. Not just on paper, but in the hearts of every person standing here." John reached for his phone and made a quick call. Within moments, the senior HR team of the Sunrise Corporation entered the room, carrying new official policies and a comprehensive reform plan. The Sunrise Rebuild Initiative was announced, offering better benefits, higher base salaries, full medical insurance coverage, and an emergency support fund for employees in hardship. The Rising Leaders Program was launched, paving a fair and open path for advancement. Regardless of age or tenure, if you had the talent and the heart, every door would be open to you. The tired sighs that once filled the room were replaced with relieved breaths, and something new began to swell within them: hope, something they hadn't dared to feel in a long, long time. John walked back slowly toward Lena, now seated in a place of honor, Leaning down, he spoke softly, just for her to hear. Lena, you're not just changing your own future. You'll be the one to bring the sunrise back to this place. Lena looked up, her eyes still glistening, but now filled with newfound strength. For the first time, she smiled fully a smile, no longer shadowed by sorrow. The meeting closed with thunderous applause, shattering the gloom of all those past years. That afternoon, John stood quietly by the tallest window of the building, overlooking the entire neighborhood. Down below, Lena was outside, coaching a group of new staff with precise, graceful movements. Her smile radiated under the sunlight like a fresh blossom blooming after a long winter. And for the first time in years, the lights of Sunrise Restaurant didn't just shine with electricity but with renewed spirit, with hearts waking up to a new dawn. John whispered to himself, voice thick with emotion. This is the real sunrise I've been waiting for. The dawn has truly returned. On that final afternoon of the year, golden streaks of sunset stretched like shimmering silk across the wide glass windows of Sunrise Restaurant. In the grand hall, cheerful laughter echoed a sound that had long been absent from this place for months. Gone were the weary sighs. Gone were the downcast eyes avoiding contact. In their place were faces held high, their expressions glowing with pride as they donned the Sunrise uniform. The new reform policy had just been signed into effect by John Miller that very morning and was immediately implemented throughout the entire system. Starting next month, John declared at a small press conference before all the staff, the base salary will be increased by 20%. Our healthcare policy will be expanded, not only for employees but for their families as well. And today, we officially launched the Sunrise Emergency Support Fund, ready to help anyone here facing difficult times. Applause erupted like thunder. Many eyes reddened with emotion, unable to believe that these words could actually become reality. John slowly turned his gaze toward Lena, no longer the timid young waitress standing quietly by the cashier counter. On her chest gleamed a new badge, Lena Collins, Assistant Operations Director. She was busy guiding a group of new employees through the Sunrise Rising Leaders Program, a special leadership training initiative in which she was the very first graduate and now a living testament to the rebirth of Sunrise. As the new employees bowed politely, Lena turned back, and her eyes met John's gaze from the highest window above. She smiled, a full, genuine smile, no longer tinged with sorrow, but filled only with confidence and a burning ambition. John stood silently, his hand gently resting against the cool glass, reflecting the bustling, cozy restaurant below. Tables were full, staff moved quickly, yet never without a smile. In this place, people no longer just found a good meal, they found kindness and respect for human dignity. A soft breeze drifted through, gently stirring the thin curtains. John closed his eyes, his heart finally at peace. For the first time in years, he felt truly successful, not because of the numbers in a financial report, but because of the happiness radiating from the people beneath the roof he had rebuilt with his own heart. His eyes turned toward the horizon, where the sky was painted in vibrant red streaks, signaling that a new dawn was indeed approaching. That human message echoed clearly in his mind. You can accumulate wealth, build a mighty empire, but if you forget the value of people, you've already lost the most precious treasure of all. A truly sustainable business is built on loyalty, the respect for talent, and relationships nurtured through kindness. Because, in the end, success is not measured by profit, but by how many lives have become better because of you. You can spend your entire life accumulating wealth, erecting magnificent skyscrapers, building an empire that others admire. But if along that journey, you forget the value of people, those who have stood by you, contributed silently, and sacrificed without recognition, then all the glory you have is nothing more than a castle built on sand. Beautiful, perhaps, but it will crumble easily with every passing breeze. A truly lasting business isn't founded on thick piles of contracts or cold, hard profit figures. It is built from the loyalty of people who believe in you, from the appreciation given to every ounce of talent, no matter how small, and from relationships cultivated with sincerity and kindness. Because in the end, the true measure of success isn't how many profit margins glow in green or red on your financial reports, but how many lives have become better, prouder, and happier, simply because they had the chance to walk alongside you. And that is the greatest legacy a person can ever leave behind.